Hi, welcome to Nav School. This is lesson 4 where I'm going to show you how to design and build a map board. This will allow you to focus on your flying and your navigation, and you're not going to have to worry about losing your maps. So before we start, let's just remind ourselves of the operating environment. Because of the risers, it's quite a tightly confined space, it's windy, and because you've got a throttle in one hand, you're likely to only be able to use one hand. The important safety considerations when it comes to map boards: it needs to be secure, it mustn't interfere with the controls, it mustn't affect your takeoff or landing, and it mustn't kill you in the event of a crash. So this is my map board. I'll take you through the construction of it now. So it starts off life as a piece of plain plastic, which is a piece of fascia board. This is a hollow type construction, which means it's very flexible in the event of an accident. It's likely to bend a lot more than you are. So this is 45 centimeters across by 31 centimeters deep. And once it is cut with a jigsaw, any amendments you need to make to it then can be done quite easily with a penknife or a screwdriver, etc. This is a non-rotating type of map board. There are other ones available. And I'll post a link in the comments so that you can see the construction of another one, which is a fully enclosed but a rotating one, so you can always make sure that the lines on your map are in your direction of travel. So in terms of security, I attach it on using these two blue carabiners. They're attached each end of a piece of elastic which runs through one of those channels we saw before. I've sewn a hoop at the end of each one, and then that attaches to my harness. So one goes each side of my body onto my harness once my leg straps and everything else is done up. And I've got nominated points that I've got a key ring put on, so I can make sure I hit the right point every single time. As you're flying forward, you're getting, let's say, 30 to 35 mile an hour wind directly in your face. So this board is going to flip up if it's not secured. So I secure mine by, again, having a piece of elastic which comes from one of the channels, and at the end of that's another carabiner. Once I'm airborne, that gets put around my leg and then hooked back onto its own elastic cord, and that stops it from flipping up, which is absolutely essential. If you don't have that, you will spend the whole flight with your map board up against your chest. Then fit an acetate cover, so you can probably just about see this. This is thin clear plastic. It's very sacrificial, so this will probably last for about 3 or 4 flights before it needs to be replaced. I attach this along the whole of the left hand side because I'm not going to be getting to the maps on the left hand side, all along the front edge, which is where the wind is going to be predominantly coming from, and then halfway down the right hand edge. The rest of the right hand edge and all along the bottom I leave open, and I'll come on to the reasons for that in a moment. This is 2 separate sheets of A4, which I've sellotaped down the middle. A4 acetate is a lot cheaper than A3 acetate. And then it's cut to match my board. These notches here are designed to allow the board to sit directly between the 2 swinging arms I've got on my Miniplane. And then beyond that, I've got a larger board, which allows me to have up to an A3 size map. You might also want to fit clips. So this clip here is just one of your standard office type clips. If you wanted to, you can attach string to it, so you can use it as a mobile attachment point. But also when I'm in the air, I will generally have that over my map to make sure that if I am moving my maps around or the acetate around, the maps won't just fly off. So that then becomes a conscious decision to move that to make sure that I can move my maps around. So I fly with my throttle in my left hand, which means I use my right hand for all my navigation activities. So on my right hand side, I've got a pen here, which I can remove and also replace single-handedly. I do not need to have 2 hands available to do that. And I've also got the scale for the map that I'm using on the day drawn on the side of the map, so I can make measurements of any of these distances that I need to once I'm in the air. This has to be tied on. If it doesn't, it'll either end up on the ground or in your propeller. And another additional benefit of having one of these clips is that before you take off, you can make sure that the string is secured behind it, so then the pen doesn't go dangling down and get wrapped around your ankles. Finally, I've got Velcro attachments. So I've got 2 on this one, but you can have as many as you want, obviously, which means that you can add additional content to your board depending on what flight you're doing. So if I was flying, for example, and I was able to use a phone, so not on a competition flight, I've got a phone holder It's got Velcro on the back of it, which allows me to tether the phone as well as Velcroing it onto my map board. I can also attach a stopwatch if I need to, and you can imagine it's very easy to build this up in a modular fashion to add anything that you want to it, including GPS if you're allowed to fly with GPS, and also a radio. So as I've already stated, this is a different design to the one that I'm going to provide a link to. I prefer this type. It really is down to individual choice. I prefer this type because it allows me to, if I want to, I can change my maps whilst I'm in the air. So I can get my hand under this acetate and I can go through and cycle through my maps, which allows me to cover greater distances. What I tend to do is I will stack my maps in the order that I'm expecting to be using them. So my planned flight today was going to be around here. When I got to the end point just south of Salisbury, I was then going to go onto my next map. So that's the way that I tend to use it, just accepting that each of these maps is only going to be used once. Other people prefer to use their maps more often than once. And then the other thing I have in terms of mapping is I have a 1/4,000,000 scale get you home map on the back. So regardless of what happens with these maps, this one is always sellotaped to my map board for the area that I'm flying over, and it gives me a big picture navigation, and that also covers all the important airspace as well. So I know the airspace before I go flying, but if I need to skirt around weather, or there's a big thunderstorm coming in that I don't want to be anywhere near and I'm moving around it, I'd like to know exactly what airspace I've got so that I can make sure that I don't fly into it. So this is my map board. Yours will almost certainly be different. This measurement here, for example, will vary according to what you're mounting it on. The length from front to back might be different as well. The most important thing you can do before you fly this is to make sure that it's not going to impinge on your takeoff or your landing, and make sure that it can be secure. So a hang test is absolutely ideal for that. And what I'd probably suggest is before you go onto a maps board as large as this, you start off with a smaller map board. So this is my day-to-day use map board. Again, it's got the Velcro, it's got a pen which is usually attached with a string. I've also got a checklist on there of what I do before I go flying. And again, it's the same acetate that I've got on there. This is only secured on the leading edge, and I normally have a clip on the left-hand side. It normally gets attached again via the elastic which comes through here and goes through to the 2 carabiners. And then my leg strap here normally has a carabiner on it as well. I'm too tight to have too many carabiners, so I recycle them between the boards. The final thing about safety is if you have a front mounted reserve, you need to be able to get to the handle. So a small board like this will allow you to reach around or reach to the side to get to the handle. A large board like this might get in the way. So before you go flying, make sure that you can reach your handle should you need to.